Most people treat the safety demo like background noise. That works out great for airlines because the most important stuff isn't always in that speech. So this video is the quiet safety secrets and facts airlines don't exactly advertise. Things even veteran travelers miss, so you actually understand what's real, what's myth, and what matters when something goes sideways. Secret number 1 decides whether you stay conscious or not. If those masks drop, you don't have 15 minutes. You might have 10 seconds. At cruising altitude, if the cabin suddenly loses pressure, you've got about 10 to 15 seconds before you can lose consciousness. That's called your useful time. After that, your brain isn't getting enough oxygen, and you may pass out without much warning. And here's what makes it worse. You usually don't feel panic first. A lot of people feel strangely normal, maybe a little lightheaded. Then, nothing. That's why the rule is blunt. Mask on your face first. Grab the mask, pull it down hard, seal it over your nose and mouth, breathe, then help the person next to you. If you try to help someone else before you can breathe, there's a real chance you won't get yours on time. Now the twist. The oxygen supply in those masks isn't for the whole flight. It's typically around 12 to 15 minutes, but that's all it needs to be. Those minutes are there to cover the pilot's emergency descent to a lower altitude where the air becomes breathable again. So the real goal isn't make it 15 minutes. It's staying conscious for the first 10 seconds. Here's a little detail most people never notice. The crew's oxygen masks aren't the same yellow ones that drop for you. Yours is basically breathe, stay awake. Pilots? More like a headset. It seals better, and they can still talk through it, so even if the cabin gets loud and confusing, they can coordinate and keep giving clear instructions. And that's why you listen for their commands. They can still run the whole play, even with a mask on. And if those instructions sound a little cold in the moment, it's not them being uncaring, it's them running a checklist. Quick question. When was the last time you actually confirmed your life jacket is there? Not, I assumed. I mean, you reached down and checked. Because here's something most people don't realize. There have been occasional reports of life vests turning up missing from underseat compartments. It's not common, but it's a real enough thing that crews have dealt with it. And yeah, one of the explanations you'll hear floating around is that someone took it, whether as a souvenir, a prank, or just people being weird. Either way, the result is the same. If you ever actually needed it, you don't want to discover that problem at the worst possible time. So next time you sit down, do a 2-second check, reach under the seat, and confirm it's there. If it's not, hit the call button and tell a flight attendant before you're cruising over water thinking, wait, where is it? And yes, taking a life jacket off a plane is a whole new level of unhinged. People love to argue about the safest seat, like there's a secret row airlines don't want you to know. If you're going by crash stats, there's a real pattern. The back third of the plane tends to do better. One widely cited analysis put the fatality rate around 32% in the rear, compared to roughly 39% in the middle and higher up front. So yeah, first class might come with a warm cookie, but it doesn't come with better odds. Now, here's the part people skip. Surviving isn't just where you sit. It's what you can do when the cabin is loud, chaotic, and you can't see your own hand. That's why the smartest habit isn't pick the perfect seat. It's building a simple mental map before anything happens. When you sit down, locate the closest exit in front of you, then the closest one behind you. Count the rows to both. Counting rows doesn't guarantee which exit will be usable, but if smoke fills the cabin or the lights go out, you're not guessing anymore. You're moving with a plan. Want to know the one seat on the plane that's built for impact? Look at the jump seats where the crew straps in for takeoff and landing. A lot of the time, they're facing backward, on purpose. That's not some quirky layout choice. It's physics. In a hard landing, your body keeps moving forward. A rear-facing seat lets a flight attendant's back take the force and spread it out, instead of snapping their head and neck the way a forward-facing seat can. And in the worst-case moment, the person who needs to stay the most functional isn't usually the passenger. It's the trained crew member who has to unclip, stand up, and run the emergency. That's also why their seat belts are heavier duty. They're designed for someone who may need to move instantly. And if every seat had that kind of hardware, the weight penalty would be massive. So if you see them strapped in, facing the wrong way, it's design, not attitude. And speaking of seats, there's something that's changed over the last 50 years that you feel more than anyone else. If flying lately feels like you're being shrink-wrapped into your own chair, you're not imagining it. On a lot of planes, seat pitch is down in the low 30s now. And on some low-cost carriers like Spirit, Frontier, or Ryanair, it can dip as low as 28 inches. So no, you didn't get wider out of nowhere. The seat really did get tighter. And it's not because airlines woke up and chose violence. It's because every inch is money. If they can shave a little space from each row and squeeze in one extra row, that's a whole new line of tickets they can sell on every single flight. At least there's one upside. You can stop blaming yourself. If you're flying long, do one quick move before you pick a seat, check the seat map and grab an aisle, an exit row, or anything with decent pitch. Because a bad seat on a long flight feels personal. And here's how it ties back to safety. Tighter space means people get stressed faster, and in an emergency, stress turns into hesitation, bottlenecks, and slower movement toward exits. Comfort isn't just comfort. It affects how smoothly a cabin can clear. Ever looked at your boarding pass and thought, wait, where did row 13 go? That jump isn't a glitch. Some airlines straight up skip unlucky numbers because enough passengers get uneasy about them. Lufthansa has publicly acknowledged that row 13 can be missing, and on some aircraft, even 17. And you'll spot the same no row 13 move on certain planes from airlines like Ryanair, Air France, and sometimes even United. So if your row number jumps over a number, it's not a broken seating chart. It's superstition dressed up as customer comfort. Now, back to the real risks, because the next one starts the moment you take your shoes off at security. Security is the perfect crime scene. Shoes off, laptop out, bin sliding away, your stuff is out of your hands, and your brain is busy following instructions. That's when a thief can grab and disappear in the shuffle. And it doesn't always stop once you board. On a red eye, with the cabin lights low, someone can open an overhead bin, like they're grabbing their own stuff, and hang around a second too long. The sketchy version is a tag team. One person distracts at the bin, the other one quietly takes the item and sits there looking innocent, like they've never committed a crime in their life. This has way more to do with the situation than the destination. Busy international routes, lots of connections, overnight flights, crowded cabin, people half asleep, that's when it's easiest to pull off. So, do two simple things. Keep real valuables in the bag under the seat where your feet can feel it. And if your bag has to go overhead, turn the zipper toward the back of the bin so anyone trying to get in has to pull the whole thing out first. Because the smoothest theft isn't loud, it's invisible. Most passengers assume planes are tracked over the ocean the same way your phone tracks you. Smooth, non-stop, every second. That wasn't really the reality for a long time. Over open water, updates could be spaced out, and those gaps mattered. That's why MH370 still hits a nerve. 1 minute, it's a normal flight, and then it slips into a blind spot, and nobody even knows where to start looking. These days, it's much harder for a commercial jet to vanish. Most planes broadcast their position automatically, and satellites plus ground networks keep a far more consistent eye on them, so instead of a few scattered dots, there's usually a real breadcrumb trail. And once you know planes aren't mystery machines anymore, the next thing to fix is the stuff that looks terrifying in the air, but is usually totally normal, like lightning hits and wings bending. Lightning first, because this one freaks people out. On average, commercial planes get struck about once a year. If it happens to you, you'll notice it. Flash, bang, maybe a little jolt in your chest. But the aircraft is built to channel that energy along the outside and send it back out, so what you're feeling is mostly adrenaline, not the plane falling apart. Now turbulence, and this is the twist, turbulence can look normal and still hurt people. The plane can handle rough air, but unbuckled passengers can't. That's where the injuries come from. So the real move is simple. When you're seated, keep the belt on. And the wings bending? That's not the plane struggling, that's the wing doing its job. In stress tests, wings on aircraft like the 787 have flexed upward close to 25 feet, and they're designed to handle around 150% of the maximum expected load. So yeah, flash, shake, flex, 3 very different feelings. One rule covers the only part you actually control. Stay buckled when you're seated. This part might make you feel safer, or slightly uneasy. Planes have a behind-the-scenes kit most passengers never see, defibs, fire extinguishers, restraints, and yes, an emergency axe. And before anyone gets ideas, no, you don't get to use it. Passengers aren't allowed to touch that kind of gear. The only people who can handle it are the crew, and it's kept secured because it's a tool in an emergency, but it can also become a weapon in the wrong hands. The point of all this equipment isn't to scare you, it's worst-case planning, the same reason buildings have fire extinguishers. So, if you ever spot a crew member grabbing something you've never seen before, don't panic. It usually means they're handling a problem early, before it becomes everyone's problem. Ever notice a flight attendant vanish mid-flight and think, did they just escape us? On long-haul flights, they didn't disappear. They went upstairs. Most wide-body jets have hidden crew rest bunks above the cabin, usually behind a plain-looking door near the galley. Inside, it's basically capsule-style beds. Curtain, small light, that's it. And here's a detail almost nobody notices. If you spot what looks like an overhead bin with no handle, it might be a concealed hatch connected to that crew area. No one's dropping into your lap, it's there for emergency access. So if the crew vanishes after meal service, they're not dodging snack requests. They're recharging. Here's a secret. On a plane, the scariest situations don't start with shouting. They start with a calm voice and a harmless sounding word. Crew do use shorthand, so you might hear something that sounds harmless, like code 300 or angel, which on some airlines can mean there's been a death on board. And there are security phrases you never want to hear, like hotel or squawk 7500, which points to a serious threat. Just remember, every airline has its own language, so don't try to decode it like you're auditioning for a true crime show. You're way more likely to scare the passenger next to you with the wrong news than actually help anyone. If you hear an unusually calm announcement, or you see the crew moving with purpose, your job is simple. Stay seated, keep your seatbelt on, keep your bag under the seat, and keep your hands off the overhead bin. Watch the crew, not the rumor, and if they give a command, follow it immediately. Because in an emergency, the aisle is not a place to stand, and the best passenger is the one who doesn't become an obstacle. This one sounds impossible, until you remember humans are the ones holding the hose. You know those gas numbers like 87, 91, 93? They're basically telling you how well the fuel behaves when an engine squeezes it hard. Higher number usually means it's less likely to act up under pressure, so aviation takes that stuff seriously. Now picture it like this. Little prop planes are the special gasoline crowd. They use avgas, often the 100 kind, and you'll usually see it tagged in red. Big commercial jets are a totally different diet. They run on Jet A or Jet A1, more of a kerosene-style fuel, and you'll often see that identified with darker markings, like black. And you can't mix and match. Put jet fuel into something that needs avgas, or vice versa, and you're flirting with rough running, power loss, or an engine that quits when you really don't have time for surprises. It's rare, but it's real. In 2014, an air ambulance flight was misfueled. Right after takeoff, they reported smoke from an engine, tried to turn back, and crashed. All 4 people on board were killed. That's how high the stakes are. And the sneaky part is where this happens. Big airports are basically Jet A world, because everything big is a jet. Avgas usually lives over on the smaller aircraft side. Think little terminals, general aviation, the FBO area where prop planes hang out. Trouble shows up at airports that do both, because now you've got 2 different fuels, 2 different trucks, and 1 very tired human doing a routine job. So when fueling looks slow and repetitive, that's not inefficiency. That's aviation building in speed bumps to stop one tiny mistake from turning into a headline. All right, quick reset. This one's not cute. If you're a big plain coffee or tea person, you might want to hear this before you sip. That coffee water comes from the plane's onboard tanks, and those tanks get cleaned on a schedule, think a few times a year, not freshly cleaned yesterday. And just to make it extra gross, airline water testing has found coliform bacteria in some samples, and there have even been cases flagged for E. coli. So if you're drinking on the plane, stick to sealed bottled water. Same goes for anything made with hot water, like coffee or tea. If it didn't come from a bottle I opened myself, I personally wouldn't gamble on it. If you wash your hands in the lave, do it. Then finish with hand sanitizer. Like the regular stuff where the label says 60% alcohol or more. Quick, hit, done. The dirtiest place on a plane isn't the toilet. It's the tray table, the one you eat on. You put your hands on it, your snacks on it. Some people even rest their face on it mid-flight. And then the plane lands, unloads, reloads, and takes off again in under an hour. So be real, nobody is lovingly disinfecting every single tray every time. And yeah, there have been real cases of parents changing diapers on those trays. In testing, tray tables have shown more than 8 times the bacteria of the lavatory flush button. That's roughly 700% more bacteria on the little table you're about to put your sandwich on. So here's the move frequent flyers swear by. Bring wipes. Wipe the tray, the armrest, the seatbelt buckle, then eat. And now I'm curious, did I miss any airline secrets you've seen firsthand? Drop them in the comments. I'll grab the best ones for the next video. And before you head out, don't forget to share this and hit subscribe. It genuinely motivates me to make more videos like this. See ya.